Hello and welcome to another video into design and specifically on our Corniche based shooting brake Henry II. If you haven't seen the previous videos yet, I do recommend you to start from number one. You will get quite some insights into the design process. Today we're actually going to look at the exterior design of the car, in this case a 3/4 rear view of the final design. And what I'd like to show you is that we still very much start sketching cars by hand. A simple A4 piece of paper with a humble big pen. That is really what many car designers still love to use, and the same goes for the guys here in the studio as well. And these are very early ideation sketches, almost thumbnail sketches on what we could do with, for instance, the greenhouse. So the glass area up top, and how up straight is that, how formal is that, or how dynamic is that greenhouse, and especially compared to some of the other rear views, where here of course there's quite a lot of glass area with a more squeezed lower body, meaning the top end of the car is slightly visually top heavy and the lower half looks a bit more fragile basically. Of course, placements of the number plate emboss, in this case situated not on the boot lid but in the bumper, or on the lower boot lid or higher up the boot lid. So just a few small changes there, but actually quite big changes from a car design perspective. Then we're of course looking as well at the greenhouse, so the DLO on the side, the daylight opening, the graphic of the combination of the front window and the rear window of the side of the car, and how that combines with the volumes of the car surrounding them. So the A pillar is factory original, the B pillar again is factory original, but from there on, like, the entire rear end of the car is bespoke and redesigned. So if I can invite you to come up a little bit closer again. For instance, the way the pillar attaches to the main body there on the fender versus the way it's doing that here with a more formal upright pillar, or a pillar up here that actually comes pretty close to what we have eventually done with the car. Of course, here you can still see that glass area is way bigger on that sketch than it is on the final car. And we keep on experimenting, turning the car around, seeing how far we can go with the idea of buttresses, of pushing in the rear window. Again, the first videos we really talked about brand DNA, about how we dive into the history and the heritage of, in this case, the Rolls-Royce brand. We look into different models, different coach-built models, factory models, the Clouds, the Phantoms, etc. And we see how bright works, so chrome surrounding windows and bumpers, but also the surfaces, the skin of the car work. Just to show you a small overview, a selection of the sketches that we've done by hand. In some cases done by hand on top of the CAD model. So what happens a lot in car design here at our studio is that we work iterative. So we go from hand sketches into CAD, from CAD back into hand sketches, making sure we are on package, as this is called. So we sketch on top of the actual car, the actual hard points we cannot change, and from there we go back into CAD, changing the surfaces, the skin of the car, the volumes, the dimensions of certain areas to just fine-tune it. And if I may invite you back again to the screen, we'll take you to one of many PDF presentations here that we present to our clients, in this case, of course, again on Henry II. And what is obvious on the images here is, of course, the skin is quite a bit more developed at this stage. This is a bit further down the design process compared to the hand sketches, the thumbnail sketches we've just shared. We can see a rear window in this case that is pushed in, referencing the classic coach-built motor cars. We don't only show a 3/4 rear view to this client in this case, but we also show the side view of the car that references, that links to this specific 3/4 rear view. So the way the volumes run, the shut lines of the boot area, etc. So, of course, everything is inspired on heritage models. So, like I said, we do quite a bit of research, and this is a small sketch that we can blow up here. Inspiration on how the flow of line, the flow of surfaces, highlights, shadows can be taken in. So blowing up that sketch a bit more, you see these white lines running over the sketch. These are describing the surfaces and the surface treatments. This is something we do not just for our clients, but also for the CAD modeling here in-house, as well as actually discussions with the workshop and the craftspeople that hand beat these bodies to discuss, this is what we're actually aiming for, is this a possibility, and is this something you can make entirely by hand. So I'm flicking through these sketches for you to see again the body of work. Here this rear end is way softer than the previous one. The previous car had that horseshoe shape that is very reminiscent of the classic Clouds and Phantoms. Here in this case we still have that soft third box, but you can see the third box. So the first box is the engine, the second box is the passenger compartment. Usually shooting brakes only have two boxes. We decided to introduce this third box as a main theme of this design, to reference to the saloon cars that Rolls-Royce of course has built so many of. But that interpretation can be done in so many different ways, and the placement of the number plate and the way the shut lines flow around the body and the way the window sits and the way the surfaces are treated, again, can be executed in many different styles and ways. So again, this is an image taken basically from the Corniche, the coupe, and the way the surfaces flow, and that's what we take forward into design sketches like this. So we have a coherent, consistent piece of car design, not something that seems to be added later on. Zooming in again on that way softer bulge at the back and a way softer flow of line in that side view. Here a overview with a way stronger facade running around that rear window, a bit more 80s if you like, a bit harder in its surfaces, a bit more straight lines in the shut lines. This window is pushed in quite strongly. There's a strong buttress running around, again reminiscent of, for instance, the Chinese eye Rolls-Royce coupe, and we'll show you some images on that later. Of course, important as well, again, inspiration taken from the Corniche design, the way the windows flow, the surfaces flow around the windows, the facades, and the way things are set up in general. So the architecture of the car and the surfaces. Zooming in again on this this sketch, looking at the depth, quite literally the depth pushed in of the rear window, and the way the lines flow. And in this case you can see we've actually sort of ghosted the shut line in there, very different compared to the other cars. So the car wouldn't show the shut lines in this design from the side because the buttress is pushing that rear window and that rear hatch in. Again, that overview with the side view with a stronger, again more sculpted but also harsher, more 80s bootlit area, with that inspiration again taken from the Corniche design. Different interpretations of that horseshoe shape up there with that facade, and the horseshoe shape down there, again taken from heritage models. More three-dimensionality. Again, a different interpretation, a slightly softer, curvaceous way, a less pronounced facade, or basically no facade around that buttress, and a slightly softer transition between the horseshoe and that lower end of the boot lid. Of course, this inspiration, again, the Chinese eye, which features this very strong facade around the rear window. Of course, the designer at the time inspired by classic Italian, or current at that time, Italian motor cars, now classic cars, of course. And the way that would look on our car. So all these design themes are then shown to the client. We discuss them quite elaborate, more elaborate than we can do in this video, of course. But you have a decent overview of what facets do, what greenhouses do, what brightwork does around the rear window, curvature of the brightwork, the window pushed in or not, the position of the number plate and the emboss or no emboss around the number plate. All these different factors, including shut lines and surfaces, are a very important part. They're all crucial parts of the piece of car design we're working on. So it's an elaborate process. There's a lot of discussion, a lot of involvement from the clients as well. It is an intense process where we discuss the design sort of bi-weekly, usually with our clients. And again, I'd like to invite you to see the screen now. We're moving forward into the design process after numerous choices by the client with the different design teams that we also show, of course, on the full car, including side views with, for instance, nice cues like this rounded corner. That is an OEM corner in the brightwork up front. We've also now translated, if we move backwards, to that little corner down there. And what it does, it ties the whole design together. It's a shooting brake, so there's a lot of glass area behind that B pillar. And instead of making that line run straight and then the roof line, brightwork also run straight and sort of bump into each other, if you like, over there, this inside curve actually ties the design together very nicely, creates a bit of new character there for our specific design, and of course, again, links to brand heritage and brand DNA. So we fly through all these different iterations, different subtleties, different surface treatments, brightwork treatments. Again, you can see now here we have that inside corner, and this is something we eventually did with our motor car, the final piece of design as well. Both inside corners of that DLO, the daylight opening on the side, as well as the lower corner there, feature that rounded inner corner that you also see here on the side view, of course. So, design feedback, design input from the client is translated to a host of different choices that we will guide the client through. We discuss important features that our clients will bring up in sessions. So let's say in the previous presentation, the client said, hey, what are we going to do with this OEM rain gutter and how we're going to translate that into the final piece of design. This could be, of course, something that we come up with as well in the previous presentations and then showcase to him. This is actually how we're going to solve these solutions and how we can give, in this case, Henry II, a bit of its own character. And you can see, again, subtleties everywhere, but here the horseshoe shape is slightly more pronounced. There's a different facet around that rear window. The rear window is set a little bit deeper, and you can see we're coming closer and closer to the actual final design. And again, having the overview and seeing all three designs in this case together, the subtleties actually do show a more softer and a slightly more defined version of the car on the bottom of the page there. So, I hope this gives a nice overview of a small process, the design process of the exterior within the full project. Thank you for tuning in. Please do let us know what you think of these videos and if you have any questions on the design of Henry II, and we'll be glad to take them in for the next video. Thanks for tuning in.